Good morning. My name is Mark Krudys, and along with Ben Crump Law, our firms represent Carolyn Ouko in connection with the death of her 28-year-old son. On March 6 of 2023, Ivo was killed. That's a determination of the Office of the Chief Medical Examiner when he was held down on the admissions floor at Central State Hospital. On top of him were as many as 10 large individuals, and they were on top of him for a duration of almost 12 minutes. At the time when this occurred, we went to the public and said, this is a case that calls out for the intervention of the U.S. Attorney's Office, the Department of Justice. This is just what the Civil Rights Act was intended to address, a circumstance like this. Instead, the case went forward by a local Commonwealth's attorney in Dinwiddie. And as you know, there was a progression of 3 different Commonwealth's attorneys over a period of 18 months. We started with Ann Baskerville, and then in June of that year, another prosecutor was appointed, and then finally Amanda Mann was elected in November of 2023 and assumed office in 2024. We were concerned that her offices lacked the experience and the resources to go forward with a case of this sprawling breadth. Sadly, at the trial of Wavie Jones, that was confirmed. The Commonwealth's Attorney's Office was poorly out-resourced and lacked the experience in these types of cases. It was upsetting to the family to be present at the courtroom when such a light prosecution was done of Ivo's death. It started out in the beginning where we could see the tremendous amount of resources that the other side had compared to the Commonwealth's Attorney's Office in Dinwiddie. On the other side, through the duration of the trial, there was a nationally known high-dollar jury consultant. Additionally, there was a person that curated all of the media that was shown in snippets that were advantageous to the defense. During voir dire, this time when you're able to talk to prospective jurors, we noticed questions that were being posed to them along the lines of their participation and support of Black Lives Matter. That was being asked by the defense, and we saw 2/3 of the African-American jurors get struck from this jury. In Dinwiddie, African-Americans comprise approximately 30% of the population, but their composition on this jury was half that. Just from the very beginning, we knew that the Commonwealth's attorney was going to be overmatched. They called witnesses that they appeared to have not spoken to. They called Central State employees that were supportive of the position of the defense, and we weren't surprised by that. They were talking about their fellow co-workers in connection with the matter, and I think it confused the jury from the beginning. The strength of this case was all of the video evidence. When this video evidence was shown across the United States by the national media, everybody was repelled by it. Everybody was disturbed by it. That was the reaction that it received in connection with the press. At the trial that occurred 2 weeks ago, Ivo, who had a history of severe mental illness where he would go through episodes that were very challenging, he was villainized at this trial. He was the patient, but he was essentially made the defendant in connection with this matter. We were very disturbed when we saw scenes like Ivo being shown pacing across his cell, totally naked, almost like an animal. At that point, Miss Ouko started trembling and crying. I held her hand during that time period as she was just floored at how her son was being treated in connection with this trial.
I'll start by introducing Ivo, reintroducing him. Ivo came to the fore, not for who he was, a brilliant young man with a full life, but for the way in which he died. Ivo has a personal connection to Kenya. He came to America at the tender age of 4 years old with his eldest brother. He attended Takaho Elementary School, Takaho Middle and Freeman High School in Henrico County. He was an athlete who played both football and basketball from a young age. He played for Western Wildcats, Pee Wee football, and then he played into middle school and all the way into high school. He played both sports. He was loving, he was caring, he cared that others were treated right. And he showed that when he was in school. Ivo stood up for his friends when they were bullied. He was not going to stand by and let that happen. That's the kind of young man that my son was. He had long stretches of time when he was in remission, and you couldn't even tell that something was wrong. But he was always, for those 10 years, living with mental illness under the care of a local psychiatrist, Dr. Selman, whom he loved and had deep conversations with. There was ample video evidence available in this case. There were multiple videos that show my son being tormented and dehumanized. But because of the weak prosecution, light cross-examination of defense witnesses, and lack of pushback, the defense counsel succeeded in making the trial about Ivo's strength and size, opposed to a healthcare patient in a crisis, exhibiting symptoms of his illness. The defense was permitted to portray my son as a dangerous, aggressive, resistant Black man who needed to be restrained. He was paraded by the defense like an animal in a cage. He was permitted to be displayed naked. That feels then and now as a racist narrative.